So, over the last 48 hours, Trump has bragged about a quote, very productive phone call with Putin and then met with Zelensky in the White House. By yesterday evening, Trump was floating a Budapest summit with Putin to end the war while quietly walking back interest in providing Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine. Even so, the U.S. was only going to provide probably like 50, which changes very little on the battlefield. But what likely changed from Trump's previous forceful rhetoric aimed at Russia was during Trump's call with Putin. Putin exploited Trump's ignorance by once again saying that X weapon is going to cause X problem. This time, that Tomahawk missiles look like nuclear weapons and that Russia would not be able to distinguish between a nuclear tipped Tomahawk and a conventional one, thus starting a nuclear war. This was coupled with a media push from Russian sources saying that Russia would retaliate with nuclear weapons if a Tomahawk was launched at their territory because the Russians can't tell the difference. As stupid as the Russians are, they can tell the difference. That is patently ridiculous and straight up propaganda. Putin and his media dogs made the same comment when we sent ATACMS over to Ukraine. The difference is back then, Biden didn't buy Putin's rhetoric, and once we did send ATACMS, Russia did exactly nothing. The bottom line here is the United States does not deploy nuclear armed Tomahawk missiles and haven't for some 25 years now at least. Russia knows what our nuclear triad looks like, and it does not include Tomahawk missiles. And so we all know what happens here. The minute the Kremlin catches any wind that Trump is going to have any meaningful talks with Ukraine or European leaders or Zelensky or whatever, Putin swoops in and immediately requests a call with Trump, then proceeds to flatter Trump as well as spin tales of a nuclear war that Russia actually is never going to start because they know they would lose that war 100 out of 100 times. Zelensky, by contrast, keeps accepting every single ceasefire framework and localized pause that is floated by the US, but Putin does not. And I honestly cannot tell if Trump realizes this or not, if he forgets that Putin keeps backing out, or if he just lets Putin continuously make a fool of this administration. From Donbass truces to supposed Russian guaranteed corridors that were shelled the same day by the Kremlin, Ukraine has repeatedly tried to stop the bleeding inflicted by Russia on civilians. But Putin is the one who refuses to honor what he signs, and the Ukrainian people pay the price. That is why long range options like Tomahawks are not escalatory. They are leveraged to deter the next round of broken promises from Putin. But the problem is even 50 isn't going to do anything. We would need to give hundreds. And if we were, that would make a difference. With a range of over 1,000 miles and very high accuracy, Tomahawk cruise missiles would raise real costs for Russia's deep rear logistics, their air bases, their refineries, and their command hubs that enable these drone and glide bomb strikes on Ukrainian civilians. Zelensky asked for the capability to stop those attacks and force the Kremlin to weigh losses it cannot hide. However, Trump once again urged an armistice at the current lines, which is just soft language for freezing Russian gains and telling Ukrainians under occupation to wait for better days that will never arrive. I mean, you just have to ask every previous country that was under Russian or Soviet occupation how that worked out for them. Putin is playing Trump here, and he's not subtle about it. Trump comes across as out of his depth every time this war reaches his desk. He chases headlines and photo ops, offers a freeze with no monitors, no enforcement, and no consequences for violations, and acts surprised and disappointed when Russia uses the lull to rotate units, reload, and continue to kill Ukrainians. If the United States withholds Tomahawks or any kind of further weapons while touting vague Budapest plans, the only lesson Moscow learns is to just keep pressing. Putin keeps territory, Ukraine loses time and lives, and Trump calls it progress towards peace as he pushes his rabid campaign for a Nobel Peace Prize that he likely will never get because every time we see the deals he brokers, they fall apart. And this is what happens yet again, and what will happen with Putin in Budapest.